What's the most fucked up shit you've walked into? A guy with a beer bong in his ass and someone pouring Jack and Coke in it. Not me, but my brother told me this. My brother is blind, and so is his friend. Let's call him Kenny. Kenny lived with his dad until one day when his dad decided to hang himself in the garage. Kenny found him by bumping into him when trying to find him when he got home from work. Was the most fucked up thing I ever heard. Heard a bang in my kitchen and walked in to find that my room had slipped and cracked his head open. So much fucking blood. He was out cold. He's fine though, a few staples and he was just as dumb as before, so no biggie. When I was 6 years old, I lived with my mom in a single wide trailer out in the country. One night she sat me down for dinner in front of the TV and gave me a big hug, then walked into her bedroom and closed the door. Shortly after that I heard the loudest boom I had ever heard in my life come from her room. I got up and opened up the door to her bedroom to find my mom with her head blown off. Suicide. I'm 34 now and it still pains me to talk about, but it is by far the most fucked up shit that I have ever walked into. My previous answer. I was the spot kid at a car dealership when I was 18. Moved cars around on the lot. When we got a spot, I'd clean it. A spot was the term for when one of the salesmen sold a car. I'd also clean up trade-ins and some other vehicles when I got a chance. We took in one of those big ass conversion vans on a trade. It was left in the back lot. On most slow nights, I'd grab one of the trades that was going to go back out on the lot and clean it. I was putting off cleaning this van for a while. It's a big ass can, and it would take hours. So when I finally decide to clean it, I grab the keys and head to the back of the lot. Open the door. There's two of the male salesmen going at it on the shitty pull-out bed, while the female sales manager watched from one of the swiveling captain's chairs. There was a shit ton of coke involved. I shut the door and slowly backed away. Never cleaned that van. The service manager asked why I hadn't already. Told him that, let's say Jan said I didn't have to, and to ask her. Few days later it gets loaded up and sent to auction. Nothing was mentioned for a few days about what I saw, but it was weird in the sales office when I was around. Few days later 9/11 happened and all that was forgotten. Back when I was in RAF or my university, I walked in on a guy trying to rape a girl. She was incoherent, could not stand up on her own, and her eyes were unfocused. When he said he would take care of her because he was a close friend of hers, I asked him what her name was, and he couldn't respond. My co-worker and I kicked him out of the dorms and jot down his info, but man, that was only my second late night shift. Edit. Since some people are asking, I was only 19 years old at the time and my training left me completely unprepared for this. Had I known then what I know now, there's more I could have and should have done. The student in question was not roofied, but just blackout drunk. One of her neighbors saw her being dragged/carried into her dorm by some guy she had never seen before, and knew that the students' roommates were gone for the weekend and called us. When we got there, we were already on patrol, so it took us less than a minute to get there. Both were fully clothed, although her clothes looked ruffled. The guy was completely sober and claimed to be a friend of hers and had promised to look after her because it was her first time drinking. We gave the girl some water and got her coherent enough to admit that she didn't know this guy and had never met him before. We took down his info, but campus PD said we couldn't prove anything about his intent, and we also couldn't prove that something physical had happened, so it was up to the student to press charges. She refused, believing her parents would pull her out of school, and since she also couldn't remember what happened, clearly she just wanted to forget about it. We filed a report, but that's about it. When I was in college, in Texas, I lived in an apartment-style dorm. Had 2 bedrooms on each side that shared a bathroom and a shared living room and kitchen. Me and a friend were walking back from our class that got cancelled, and we walked in on my roommate jerking it on the couch in the living room to some old school VHS porno on the TV. It gets better. He had his cowboy hat on, cowboy boots on, and had his leg hiked up in the air, and was grabbing his dick from under his thigh, like reaching back to front, and jerking it that way. Also, he was probably close to 300 pounds. Never sat on that couch again, and changed rooms at the end of the semester. Edit. For those asking, he paused at me, and my friend just turned around and walked out. No clue what he did after we left. My mother cheating on her boyfriend with her ex-husband. Later in life I found out my mother is a serial cheater. Even more oddies, that she claims to hate sex. Once walked in on a co-worker giving a manager a blowjob. She was furiously going at it to. He got startled. She stopped. But the fucked up thing was she came up to me later and said that could be you and winked. It was fucked up because all three of us were married to other people. I noped out. At university I walked in on my housemate having cocaine blown up his ass with a bicycle pump by his girlfriend. They're married now, so there's someone out there for everyone. Worked downtown and was on my lunch break. Went to the bathroom before heading back to the office. Walked in on a girl taking a shit in the sink. Before I had arrived she must have shit and smeared it all over the mirror. She kind of hissed at me when I walked in. I got the hell out of there and told security. Wife and I went to Denny's for a late breakfast. Couple with teenage daughter in booth behind us on the other side of the partition. Daughter looks to be 16 to 17ish. Mother is sobbing and visibly shaken. Father is berating daughter. Daughter turns out was picked up by police in the middle of the night in a stolen car with her 4 other friends. Parents had just gotten her out of detention. Father was giving the "we did not raise you to be like this" speech. She had been sneaking out at night to go partying with her friends. Then all hell broke loose. The daughter came clean that she and her friends were doing sexual favors to get the drugs and liquor each night. The stolen car was from a John. Parents only thought their daughter and friends were joyriding in a stolen car. We listen in on that train week of a conversation and are like, oh my god. Edit, more details. This was happened 9 years ago. I think the parents were trying to shame the daughter, but did not realize the sordid details that would come out. Some other details I remember are the other girls were older, 17, 18. This wasn't the first time she had snuck out, but it was the first time the police became involved. Edit #2. Seeing lots of replies as to what is a John. For the younger redditors and those from other countries, a John is someone who seeks the services of a lady of the night / hooker / prostitute. I walked in on my sons all pissing into the toilet at once while my daughter waited her turn. They were worried about going in on their own because they saw a movie about murderers hiding in bathrooms and killing people. When I was 12 I volunteered at the library in the kids section. If kids wanted a copy of something made, they had to ask me, and I would charge it to their library card. I went to go make copies of a picture in Horton Hears a Who, definitely so the kid could color the picture. I walk into the back and there's a cop with a guy bent over the table in handcuffs, throwing bags of what I thought were green spices and sugar, as well as wads of money. I said I needed to use the copier, and he said that was fine. So I stood right next to them while he finished emptying this guy's pockets and I copied a picture of a Dr. Seuss elephant. I went back to deliver the copies to the kid, who was about 8 or 9. I told the kid why it took so long, that there was cops searching a guy in the back. I explained the strange items I'd seen him pull out, and the kid deadpan goes, "That's Sweden cocaine. My dad does them." Got a message from a friend of my then girlfriend. Told me I needed to go to my girlfriend's house because she was feeling rather horny. Was odd that her friend sent me this message, but I thought I was getting 6, so I hauled ass over there. She was horny, alright. Horny for the 2 dudes betrosting her. I used to work as a security guard and got some patrol shifts one weekend to secure a bunch of secondary schools and elementary schools nearby to them. School vandalism is very common on the weekend between prom and graduation. I was doing a patrol through an elementary schoolyard at around dusk, 8 PM, and came upon a girl giving a blowjob to a guy on the swing set. Both kids are maybe 16 or so. I used my lots authoritarian voice to say, "This isn't a good place to do that." The guy immediately starts crying a lot. The girl panics and just runs off, leaving the guy with his pants down. He won't stop crying, like bawling and snot all over the place crying. I end up spending a very long time calming him down before escorting him off of school property. I never called the police or filed a report. At that point I figured the emotional scars would probably be enough of a deterrent. Edit. Thank you for the silver to answer the questions that keep coming up in the comments. I calmed him down by talking to him. No happy ending occurred. He was probably blue-balled, though I didn't verify this information with him. He did not disclose, and I did not ask whether or not she bit him. He pulled his pants up about a minute after the girl left, when he kind of came to his senses. He kept crying for a while after that, though. I had no reason to suspect sexual assault. He did not disclose abuse and I wasn't exactly probing him on the details of the situation. I was delivering a parcel to a business in a remote location, walked in and found a naked chick throwing cucumbers at an elderly gentleman's spread ass cheeks. She saw me and told me to wait a second while she threw 2 or 3 more. It appeared as though she was trying to javelin them into his crinkly old brown eye. Then she came over, signed and went, and started collecting the cucumbers. The old guy shouted thanks. There must have been 30 cucumbers on the floor. Later that day I delivered a parcel to a guy that was in the middle of being arrested. The cops let him sign though, and he told me it was a dildo for the cop's wife, and the cop replies that if he didn't shut his mouth he'd shove the box up his ass. It was a great day, and I still think fondly of that old man and his baggy shit piece. I walked into a cloud of mace once. East Indian owner of a Greek restaurant was arguing with 2 native women on the street. I'm walking along, and just as I'm about to pass them, he maces the women. Fucked me up right quick. My roommate getting ready to have sex with his best friend's wife, while their kids who were on a play date were napping. Got home from work to find a gangbang happening on my living room floor. When I was about 11 or 12, I went outside to go play and quickly found a trail of dead and puppies that my pregnant Rottweiler had left in the yard. I vividly remember that one was missing its head. I followed 3 or 4 of them into the detached garage where she stayed and found her eating them. We were able to save 3. It was her first litter and she clearly did not want them, so we had take over their care. Still turns my stomach to think about. I walked in to re-evaluate a patient and the patient was getting a blowjob from girlfriend in the ear. Clearly there is no emergency. You, sir, are discharged. Walked in on a guy using a Hitachi magic wand on a girl who was orgasming so hard she had shit herself. Dude was yelling muahaha, sounding like the mad scientist on Tojam and Earl 1. I walked into my friend's house just as his teenage sister told her family she was pregnant. During a night of drinking and partying, I laid my friend down in this room after he passed out outside. When it was to leave, I went back to the room to get him, only to be greeted by a couple in full doggy style mode next to him as he slept, and him talking pounding it. An old friend of mine giving his now ex-girlfriend a knife and proceeding to tell her she just needs to do everyone the favor and kill herself. I used to work in a prison. It's a British female prison, and I was a male officer. At lockup time I was getting everyone back to their cells, mainly by ineffectively shouting at the women, but slowly they were getting banged up for the night. I walked in this one cell to check, and on the floor were 2 women inserting a 2L full Coke bottle into the other. Fat end first, the inserters were about 25 and the receiver 50. I just noped out of there, came back 5 minutes later and everyone was back in their own cell with just the receiver sat watching TV in her own cell. Not a word was said by me or them. Locked everyone away and never told anyone, except my wife, when I got home. And she was like, yeah well you can fit a baby out that way, a Coke bottle isn't that much wider. My uncle was driving me to school, so I went to his house in the morning. He and his wife were fighting in the living room and I guess he didn't see me walking in, because he proceeded to take spare change out of his pocket, count it and give it to his angry wife saying, if it's so terrible to be married to me, here, catch a bus to, insert here common bridge, to commit suicide in my city, and jump. And I won't give you money for the ride back, because you won't need it. His exact words don't translate perfectly, but that is close enough. Then he took his keys, jacket in my hand and stormed out. The wife had the most INDIGNANT* look on her face I've ever seen. When I was young I was at my grandparents' ranch. My grandmom told me to go out and help my granddad. He was in the barn with a cow birth and had been there a while. I walked out to the completely quiet barn to see him looking down in either disgust or sadness. I walked around to see the most disgusting thing. The baby was already dead inside the mom and had ruptured during the birthing process. This caused massive shock and prolapse of the cow. I saw a low of blood, a smell I will never forget, and the decaying face of a baby cow never born. Walked in on my mom doing lines of coke at my cousin's apt on Christmas Eve. Things got real tense after that. I knew my mom was no saint, but my dad got angry at me for finding out.